Roxana, is this working? Can you hear us okay? Maybe she's not at her. Ready?
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Escalon Special Planning Commission meeting of June 19th, 2024. Can we start with the call to order?
You just did.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, how about a roll call?
Commission Chair Mark Sarkozy.
Here?
Commission Vice Chair Steve Castellanos.
Here.
Commissioner Barbara Willis.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Dunbar.
Here.
Commissioner Ronnie Van Dyke.
Here.
Okay, let's see. Note all cell phones, pagers, and similar devices need to be set to silent or vibrate mode or turned off unless you are an on-duty emergency responder. And with that, we'll move on to the consent calendar for the approval of the minutes from the meeting of April 9th, 2024. Any comments or edits?
Make a motion, pass the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstained?
Abstain. Wasn't here.
Okay, motion passes 4-0 with one abstaining. So next, item number 2 is application 24-798, a conditional use permit and site architecture amendment. Is there a staff report?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Yes, as was read, and I'll just correct our staff report, it's a conditional use permit amendment. This is not the first conditional use permit on the site, so it is an amendment and site and architecture approval. So as is stated in the staff report, and I'll just read here, the project applicant is requesting approval to construct for personal use, 2 different uses here, personal use, an 1,800 square foot private game room, a 28,800 square foot private covered horse arena, and a 6,080 square foot horse barn for stabling the owner's horses. And then the second use, for business use, a 5,600 square foot workshop for maintenance of orchard removal equipment. So the property is in the M2 zone. On site, there is what we call a legal non-conforming use. There is a residence on site. That residence is legally allowed there. It is non-conforming with the underlying zoning. The rest of the property is consistent with the underlying zoning, and that is the nature of the prior conditional use permits, this legal but non-conforming use. Our code, the Escalon Municipal Code, calls for any furtherance of the legal non-conforming use to be approved by a conditional use permit. So as was read, we do have 2 sort of separate uses being proposed here. The business use, the shop, is consistent with the underlying zoning. The horse-related uses are tethered or connected to the residence, and they are for private use. So they are the subject condition of a conditional use permit. So that is basically the action in front of you tonight. This is in the city limits. The southern boundary of the property is Jones. South of Jones is county. North of Jones, on this side of McHenry, is the city limits. It is largely a rural and industrial area. There is not significant residential or other intense uses around. There are, of course, certain findings associated with the conditional use permit. Those are outlined in the staff report, as well as findings for site and architecture. We do have up on the screen the kind of site plan, and you will see the proposed uses that we outlined, the proposed barn up towards the north part. So kind of in the middle of the barn, being circled there, the arena further north of that, and then the game room. And then the shop is further to the west. So really, do we have another slide?
Elevations.
So yeah, the other part of this, the conditional use permit, which was outlined, but we do have site and architecture. So we have a couple slides that walk through the shop and the arena, as well as on the next slide, the proposed game room and the barn. And all of that information is in the packet for the commission's prior review. So with that, relatively straightforward staff report. Staff is happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. This is a hearing, of course, and so we will go out to the public thereafter.
Hey, thank you. Questions for staff from the commission?
May have some at a later date, if that's okay.
I've got a question on the, where it says use and zoning on surrounding land. Understand that south is county, but northeast and west is all M2 general manufacturing. And then you have slash ranchette homes and orchards. So are those the ones with the homes on them? Are those also non-conforming?
Yeah, so what we do in this section of the staff report is provide not only the zoning kind of general plan, but also what is actually there. And so, yes, it is M2, general manufacturing, but on the ground, there are a number of ranchettes, orchards, and some industrial development.
Thank you. Dunbar?
No, I do not at this time.
Okay. All right. Great. So at this time, why don't we open up the public hearing, and maybe the applicant can step forward, and if we have any questions, you can address them.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rod Hawkins. I'm with Hawkins and Associates Engineering, and I'm the civil engineer in helping Phil with this application. So, as Jalen said, it's very straightforward, just something that Phil has always kind of wanted, is a big man cave out there and a nice place for his horses. So it's really that simple. And then their shop space they need for their business. Phil's lived there for 30 years, and this has been kind of a dream to have it all right there near his place. So We've appreciate Jalen and Diana doing all that work and their staff report. We've reviewed the conditions. We don't really have any issues or questions, but I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. And then obviously Phil is here if you have some directly for him.
Thank you. Okay, we're down here.
Start down here. Okay. Well, my printer isn't working at home, so I had to send myself these on email. So bear with me while I play with my phone. My first question is, how long do you anticipate this taking?
The actual construction, I'd probably within the next year to two. Yeah.
Okay. So I was looking at the plans for the barn, and I see there are 4 stalls listed. But the other side of the barn doesn't show anything, but if I'm doing my math right, there appears to be room for about 10 stalls total, if they're each about 192 square feet, which is what I estimated from looking at the figures on the plan. So that's pretty big for a stall. My question becomes, do you anticipate growing the herd? I mean, how many horses do you anticipate keeping in this barn?
Go ahead.
I had 7 for myself for years, but right now I keep.
Use the microphone so we can hear, please.
Right now I keep a couple of horses, and the other side of the barn was to put my trailer in there when we come in with the horses. I did that back on roads for most of my life, and then when I moved out here, well, that's probably most of my life. We haven't had it, so this is what I'm doing. Putting it like I had it on Rose Avenue, where we parked the trailer in the barn and had the horses there too.
So does that mean you've got 2 horses now, and that's all you intend to have, or you
There's 3
intend to
on the
have
property
4?
now, but I don't intend to have more than 2, yes. I don't pack anymore. I used to do a lot of packing, going to the woods. Now I just, riding, and that's why the arena, I've rode and covered arenas that, a little older and like stay out of the rain and the sun. And it's just for myself. And the game room is really not a game room, we called it the cowboy room. And we've had those plans for years. Wayne, right over here behind us, and what is that, orange? Yeah, Wayne McCurley, that's just one exactly like he has. So I have pictures of his. And he just collects old furniture and puts it in there and puts his saddles that he wins and things like that and his trophies in there. And you can go in after riding the horses without going in the house.
So you're only going to have 2 horses, but I was looking at the pictures. I haven't been down Jones Road for a while, so forgive me. But the last time I was there, I think you were using that part of the property for storage of wood. There are piles of wood there, if I'm remembering correctly, and I may not be.
You're right.
Right. So do you anticipate creating any kind of paddock or pasture for the horses? I mean, because what the pictures appear to show is dry dirt right now.
Is what? Sorry?
It appears to be dry dirt.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. We've thought about pasture, but I'm not sure we want to do pasture. We want to landscape. I got a fellow right behind me there that's trying to get some plans, and he's great at doing it. And I've been for a long time trying to get him, and him and his wife have agreed to come and help me get a landscape. That's what he does, is landscape.
Would the landscaping be for the horses?
No, but it would go in my yard, and that's all my yard, basically.
Okay. One of the conditions, I think it's condition 3, says you will have to mitigate for noise and smell. And this is also brought up by the county in Exhibit F. I'm just wondering how you mitigate for smell. I mean, do you have any ideas about how that happens, how that works?
Had a lot of experience, but we've never had any problems with the horses. We've had them there since I went in there 20, 30 years ago. We keep cleaned up, pick it up.
So you don't have any plans to do anything additional than what you're doing now?
We can. I mean, I'm pretty good at that. I've had green waste yards, 100-acre green waste yards, contracts for all county, Sacramento, and we're pretty good at breaking down smells if you have to, but I don't see any problems.
Okay. So right there to the east of your, well, I think it's on your property, but on the eastern edge of your property, on fronting McHenry, you have that large berm where you put the Christmas lights and things along those lines. Do you foresee any changes at all occurring to that berm because of your construction or post-construction?
No, the redwood trees give me sanity, the berm. It block the noise.
Yeah.
They're identified on the site plan, and so we're.
Right. Just wanted to make sure I heard that because because I like that berm. Mm-hmm. So this kind of gets back to one of my earlier questions, but since you used to store wood there, what is being displaced? I mean, you've got 48,000 or more square feet going undercover, so to speak, with these buildings. But you were using that property for something, presumably, before it was cleared off. So whatever you were using it for, where's that function going to move? How are you going to accommodate your needs if you don't have this 48,000 square feet?
Well, we have another 10 acres in the back. We haven't used it much, but we've been putting our wood back there now. And we don't do firewood, haven't many, many years.
Right.
We have some, but we do wood chips, and we bring them in, we have truck dumps, and we dump them, and we take them out, just for a backup, if the plants get full. And
So
I can supply plants if it's wet out there.
So this dirt that you're anticipating building this on has no other use at this time. It's going to be your playground, so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay. The term personal use appears throughout the documentation. And I was wondering, does your personal use include, like, say, a party barn function? I mean, we're all familiar with party barns here in the Valley. You mentioned a party barn in the Bay Area, and they look at you like you're nuts. But here in the Valley, we know what a party barn is. Lots of people show up at those. Is this going to be a party barn?
Absolutely not. I'm not interested in that at all.
Okay, so how about your offspring? I understand you have children, adult children. Are they interested in turning it into a party barn, do you think?
No, they live in Hawaii, and one works for the fire department, and not at all. And I wouldn't let it.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Just one thing, I noticed today when I drove by, there were cars in the angled parking, and then there were 3 or 4 on the berm next to the street. And I see that in site and architecture, number 8, it says adequate and conveniently located parking is provided and designed in a manner that discourages on-street parking. So is that normal to have the cars parked on the street on Jones? Was it just overflow today?
Yeah, we had some guys come in with hose of contractors, and they brought a few more cars. Contractors just to help clean up because we're busy in the shop, and so we did that.
They don't use the angled parking in the lot?
No, they didn't. We could block that or whatever you want, but they didn't use it. I saw it out there.
Thank you.
Linus?
Question for the architect. The cowboy house or building, is that 2 stories or 1 story? Because
There's a
reading it was
loft
like
area.
25 feet.
Yeah, there's a loft area,
There's a lot.
yeah.
Okay. And will any of the structures be plumbed?
I would expect to have a bathroom in the Cowboy Room facility. I don't think so in the any of the
I
barn.
don't have one of the
Yeah.
plans. That would be a good idea.
Oh, okay. And I just to clarify, and no problem, but I'm a civil engineer, so the architect.
Okay, they're not the architect.
Yeah.
So, because
So
we're
those
doing the
plans are- yeah.
architectural,
Yeah,
on this thing too, so I kind of want to get a sense of what the building's going to look like. So, Mr. Lyandakis, you mentioned you're not sure if there's going to be water to
Think about
those
water.
new buildings?
In any of the buildings? Yeah, we do.
Cowboy building, will it have water for a bathroom and stuff?
Well, we don't have any bathrooms planned in there, but
Okay, so, I see like 20 stalls or something for parking. Where are those participants who go in that Cowboy building, use the bathroom? They go into your house?
there's bathrooms, in the building that's up, and we have some portables if we need. They have,
You have portable? You said
we have
portable?
bathrooms. We have now.
the stalls that you're looking at, and I hadn't even really considered what that looks like, but those have been there from the original use permit. They were parking on there, so that's not, those haven't been identified as parking for the Cowboy Room, those 20 stalls. It was just,
Well, once upon a time, it was a house.
yeah,
And now there's gonna be a Cowboy room, game room, whatever you wanna call it, and then you got a large, covered arena behind it, and so the intended use has been amplified, and I'm just,
yeah, I get it. I'm just remarking that those stalls were not added for these uses. They're basically there from the original.
I'm assuming at the time of building permits, at that time, if there's gonna be plumbing to any of those buildings, they'll show at that point in time.
Everything would be plan check and reviewed and per code.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
I don't have anything either. Thank you. Anybody else like to come up for or against the project?
I'm Richard Nelson. I've lived across from Mr. Lyadakis for 32 years. For those of you who haven't been down Jones Avenue, I'm pretty familiar with it. There are neighbors around it, and there are people that live immediately adjacent around the place. Myself, Lisa Texera lives behind Phil. Ellen Haver lives up 2 houses up, and Mike Weaver, who runs Weaver Trucking, lives right next to it. Okay? I have general comments. I've talked to Phil a little bit. I've looked at the plans. I'm not an architect, just general concerns here. Parking. There are 3 cars parked on Jones Avenue on the side of the road consistently, and I think the guy's working his shop. Vendors pull in for, say, Napa or something. They pull into the parking area, and there isn't a place really for them to park. You have the trucks go in at the McHenry entrance typically, if they know where it is, or they go up the road to the second where there's an electronic gate they can get in. But access is difficult sometimes. You see trucks backing up from the second entrance all the way to the back. So I said traffic is an issue. Nobody's gotten killed. So, but I think if you're going to have extra traffic, particularly with this party room, hopefully they know where to go. So I don't want them coming over to my place. Okay. Another little problem is drainage. Yeah, flooding on Jones Road is not serious, but from McHenry or up a little bit to the second entrance, sometimes the road's completely covered with water just because the sprinklers are not paying attention to. That's a small point, but it's a safety hazard. Next question is electrical stuff. You're going to have electrical lines going for all these new facilities. We've had numerous issues at our place, power surges, because the power on the Phil's shop is the line goes to the pole across Jones, which feeds into our house. His equipment, he's got his big equipment. The guys get careless, they hit the line, pull it down, pulls our line down, sends a surge into our house, which we don't appreciate. He's good about covering the damages, which we appreciate. Fortunately, our house hadn't caught on fire or anything like that, but it's an inconvenience. That's just general things. Okay. So traffic, people, waste disposal, electrical configurations. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
I have some questions, Mr.
Yeah. Could you stay up? We got one question for you.
Dick?
Come on back up.
I don't hear real well, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I need to speak into this a little bit or two.
So I have a question. So I heard your concerns. Are you against the construction of these buildings?
No,
You're not against them?
no. It's his property. He can build stuff on it. If it was a public gambling hall, which was, I thought it was going to be at first, like a card room, yeah, I would be against that on moral grounds.
It does have saloon doors, it looks like, so, yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak for or against the project?
Hello, good evening. My name is Lucy Teixeira. I live at 20267 McHenry, the next door neighbor, next to the fence. I also have a lot of Mr. Nelson's concerns. I'm not against the project. I'm just more concerned about the noise levels, the flies problem. Is he going to connect to Water City or sewer, or is he going to use the well, because horses require water and so on? Is there going to be, I think we had talked about the restrooms, hours of operation, I also had, is there going to be rodeos on, it's almost a 30,000 square foot arena. It's pretty big for 3 horses, but, maybe. And then I was also wondering, on the list here that it says, distributing list, that he's reached out to ABC alcohol beverage. Is he getting a license for alcohol? Those are just some of my questions and concerns. But I'm not opposed to him billing. I'm just right next to him, so I'm kind of concerned about the noise and a lot of this different stuff, so.
Are you concerned, when you say you're concerned about the noise during the construction or ongoing operations?
Well, ongoing operations, 3 horses, 6 stalls, 10 stalls. Is it going to grow? How big is it going to grow? How many, what's the limitations or the max capacity of people in the cowboy room, I have friends, we can get loud sometimes, we're out in the country. So those are my concerns. I'm an early person, I get up early. So, just concerns. So, well, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that. Oh, yeah, anybody online?
Did have one before, we were checking.
You have someone online.
Any comments from our online visitor?
I was basically just concerned about the, if there was going to be alcohol served.
Okay, thank you. We will make note of that. Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Ask the planning director, acting city manager, a couple of questions. I had two, now I have three. So the first question is, under this conditional, well, let's step back. Is M2, under an M2 zoning, are horses allowed? That's the first question.
No.
Okay. So the second question is, under the conditional use permit, are we limiting the number of horses that he can keep on site?
As presented in the staff report, staff has not sought to limit the number of horses. If it was the discretion of the planning commission, that is certainly within your purview.
So there's no, okay. And then the third one is under the M2 zoning or the conditional use permit, can he have, if he's getting it for an ABC license, can he sell alcohol on the property?
Yeah, we don't have any reference to the ABC license. We have
Okay.
no knowledge of the applicant seeking an ABC license. We can certainly ask the applicant, but from our staff standpoint, we have not been made aware, nor is it referenced in the staff report.
Because I didn't read it either, so I kind of jumped out of it.
That's a good question.
I think that they were just copied on that letter. So that's what drew it to our attention.
We send out to all the agencies.
Yeah.
Anybody has comments?
So we do, when we receive an application, we send it out to kind of partner agencies, water, utility, agencies, Caltrans, agencies that may have a comment. Perhaps, I guess ABC was included in our list, but we did not receive comment, nor did we receive anything from the applicant suggesting they were applying for an ABC license. It has been expressed to us, this is for personal use and would not necessitate the use of an ABC license.
One more question. Before any permits are pulled on this property or any work done, will the applicant need to connect to city water and install the fire hydrant first?
So it is a condition of the project to connect to city water. The property is currently connected to city sewer. So I don't know if your question was,
What comes
is
first?
it going to be,
The chicken or the egg?
in this case, the chicken and the egg come at the same time. So during construction, at some point, there will be a connection to city water.
Question of the applicant. Okay. Phil, would you mind stepping to the podium? I have a question or two for you. No, I'm just,
Water too.
Okay.
based on audience input, I'm just wondering about the traffic. You have two entrances to your property,
Three.
three entrances off of
I only
Jones?
use one.
You only use one? So I'm concerned about the comment that was made about traffic coming up to the gate and having to back up to use a different gate? Does that happen?
We used to use there's, I call it gate 1, 2, and 3. The third gate is, we don't use it very, very seldom. The second gate is electric, but we haven't used it in the last few years. But I'm looking at it now to get it working again, to come in down there by the shop would make a big difference. But, you know, I let that stop because of theft mainly. You know, if they can get in down there, I can't see them. Here I can see them on my front windows. I can hear them. And I put little sensors out there if they go by. But I can do it out the other gate. But behind the shop, I've had people come in there. I got, you know, fuel tanks and expensive parts and things.
So the first gate is what's normally used.
That's what's been being used for several years now.
So if people come in, they know to go to that gate?
Well, people that just come over, any delivery trucks, UPS, stuff like that. Our people go in and out that gate. The other gates are chained up, locked. But like I say, the second gate would knock down a lot of traffic there. And I had gate people come out the other day and they put a new automatic doors in my shop and we'll get it fixed.
People who come know that you go to gate 1.
Yeah, we put little signs out there. So, you know, come in this gate or tell them. We can open the gates with our phones, you know, the first gate. Actually, you can the second one. It just hasn't been hooked up for quite a while.
All right.
And water, I have 20,000 gallons of pressure tank there. I have 30,000 gallons in a storage, and I have another 500 gallon. So see, I've got 2 pumps at 7. If one goes down, they're plumbed together at 300 gallons a minute, both of them. So I have quite a bit of water, and I'm hooked to sewer. So.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So both the business and the residents use the same gate to come in and out of your property?
It's right in front of me. I'm just me. It's not, I mean, you know, the residents, when my folks were alive, they came over more, but they're all passed away. So, you know, there's not a lot of traffic for the residents, mostly me. You know, I don't have parties or anything like that. I don't intend to. I'm sure not going to get a liquor's license. You know, if somebody wants to see this setup that I'm doing that I've wanted to do for a long time, let's have a tour go out to Wayne's. I'm sure I can get arranged. It's got that cowboy room. It's got that arena. His arenas are bigger, but this is good. It's just me, you know, and I might have my girlfriend or whatever come over, but it's nice to ride under shade.
Oh, yeah, especially when
Yeah.
trouble.
And, you know, I always did trail riding and went out, got a fancy horse trailer I really enjoyed. This man here has built most of it. And here he's amazing, you know. You know, he works on stuff for NASA and everything. I can't believe he works for me. But you know, we've made a nice horse trailer. That was my love. Well, now, sometimes my business is going good. I don't have time, and I'd like to ride around there and ride around it just would be nice. I put up an arena. I can afford it. I can do it, you know, if you let me. There's no, they called it a game room. I always called it the cowboy room. You know, you put your trophies in your saddles and you go in there, like I say, after you ride your horses instead of going in the house. And I mean, Wayne's doing it, I've been doing it for years. You know, it's a family deal there. And I'm doing the same thing. It's just, in that first part of property, I sort of call that's my home place. And then when you go in the back, you got the shop. That's where we're putting the building on the next piece. It's got. Questions?
My turn. For staff first, if I can ask, is it customary through the building application process for them to provide a site plan showing parking and going around the facility? I'm guessing, based on jurisdictions, I've had to do different things for showing truck routes and traffic flow. Is that something that our city typically provides, or would we, if we needed to add a condition, would that be something that Planning Commission can do?
Yes, I would say typically that is done at planning level. We have not seen a concern with that issue. If the Planning Commission sees a concern, we can certainly address it through this process, and I would recommend not waiting to the building permit.
Okay.
If there's a concern with circulation or access to or within the property.
For I guess the civil or whoever wants to address, do you have issues with creating a site plan showing routing of traffic through just to ensure safety from the street
No,
in
not
and
at all.
out?
We could certainly just put some directional arrows and things and maybe some signage on this
Okay.
and absolutely provide it easily.
Is there signage now showing as like an enter and exit?
Is there signage like at the driveway saying entrance and exit? I don't think so. But we could easily do
Could
it.
add that.
Signs have sort of deteriorated.
Yeah.
Sign for this, I've been telling them. I'm proud of it, let's get a sign made.
We can.
And then that might clean up some of the issues that neighbors are having and whatnot. And are you guys aware of the condition on the application about tying into city water?
Actually, I wanted to ask some clarification on that because I reached out to Chief Mello and he was not in today. But the concern I have is that we weren't anticipating any connection to domestic water. Obviously, we got to satisfy the fire marshal, and it sounded, talking to Diana, and again, I was trying to get a hold of the chief, sounded like he was more concerned about having water access on the west side of McHenry, so that a hydrant or something installed. But I guess I would just simply ask that I think whatever requirements we need, domestic is going to be very minimal, and we have domestic water on site. Fire protection, we have to satisfy the fire chief, whatever that means, and so I'm okay with the conditions the way they're written, as long as we understand that we just have to comply with building code and the fire marshal. So I'm not anticipating trying to run domestic water along the frontage on Jones. It was my understanding.
So I have a question. You use the term, you have water on site right now. That's a well, correct?
Correct. So, yeah, and that's all the domestic water uses.
And there's been a couple of conditional use permits back when, one of the conditions several years ago was to connect fire hydrant and water to that site. We mitigated it, we pushed it back.
I understand.
All the time.
One of the issues that I don't know really what the city can do, maybe we can work together, but the railroad there is actually abandoned, as you probably know, from the south side of Jones Road to the north. So when Phil put the sewer line in Jones Road however many years ago, literally the tracks are blocked north of Jones Road, a couple 100 feet. You physically can't run a train past that. But their right-of-way isn't abandoned until the south side of Jones Road. So we spent, or I didn't, Phil did, I drew it up. It was easy for me, hard for him. He had to bore and jack underneath an abandoned railroad to get that sewer in. And it would be similar for the water. And it's just a ridiculous expense because that track is literally abandoned, but the right-of-way is not until you get to the south side of Jones Road. So when you talk to the railroad, they're the railroad. And they say, well, that's our right-of-way, you have to bore and jack. And it's like, you can't physically run a train down there, and it's abandoned from south of Jones all through the county. But anyway, so that's really, that's the rub about extending that water line down. I mean, and that's, again, I mean, that's just a bureaucratic issue, but it's ridiculous. So that's one of the objections we have.
I will add clarity to the city's thought process on the condition. There were prior, as was referenced, there were prior conditional use permits approved that had conditions. The conditions were to improve the frontage of Jones Avenue to connect to city sewer and to connect to city water. In 2011, the city entered into an agreement with the property owner, in essence, to defer those out to no later than 2036, or when the city engineer deemed them necessary. So for instance, if there was significant development around the area and the frontage of Jones needed to be improved, the city engineer could say those are needed now and require under this agreement the applicant to make those improvements. So as we discuss the water, in coordination with fire, they did request a hydrant or, some sort of pump system to ensure they had adequate pressure and supply of water in case anything happened. So from the city standpoint, we'd always like to see properties connect in the city to city water. We recognize the 2011 agreement, which defers up to 2036. So that's staff's rationale. If the Planning Commission also saw it in the way that the applicant is sharing now, that if it were to comply with fire's conditions, city staff could be agreeable to that, if that makes sense.
I have a question. If there's any development west of the applicant, a large development, an industrial development, where does the water come from? Where does it come from?
So there is a line on the east side of McHenry, and I think it dead ends at Jones Road.
It essentially, yeah,
So-
it essentially dead ends at Jones.
So it dead ends at Jones.
Yeah, so, honestly, it's available. It's just, like I said, that extra $100,000 to pour under an abandoned railroad is just hard to swallow.
Part of the agreement also, wasn't it to dedicate Jones Road to a wider, I think it was 70 feet wide?
60.
Yeah, with most improvements, the city standard is greater than what is currently there. So yes, there would be some dedication, some widening, and then the actual improvements, curb gutter, sidewalk, landscaping, lighting, whatever was required for that street.
The new buildings are wood? Is the construction wood on all of these? Just one?
Of course, the cover is big metal. The cover's metal, and the shop is metal. And, it'd be two if we did the cowboy room. Yeah.
And the nearest hydrant is where now?
It's across McCreary. We have a lot of water for the fire, places for the fire trucks to fill up right there with these big tanks. We just don't have, we have pressured water, but not, it'll run about 1.5 inch. That's about it. Fire hoses. Anything?
Dunbar, anything?
No, I think I asked my questions earlier, and I'm just trying to ponder.
I just had a question. One of the comments about the power, is that when the power surge happens and it affects, I forget which neighbor.
Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Nelson's, is that a PG&E problem that they need to address, or is it an applicant responsibility?
So we have no knowledge of this outside of the comment that was provided. It sounded like there was, they hit the line, which caused the surge more than, there's issues within the line. So it sounds like perhaps a neighbor issue, if there's a hitting of the line.
Okay.
You could explain some of that. What's going on there? Roger? Roger Russell.
Yeah, my name's Roger Russell. I work for Phil. About 2-3 weeks ago, one of our guys was moving one of our excavators, and he's fairly new, and caught the lines coming into the shop. So what happened is it's a 3-phase service with a stinger leg, and it crossed over, so it sent a surge back across the street because we share the same transformers, everything. So we replaced his surge protector at his house. And
When PG&E put the transformer in.
Microphone.
yeah, so, we, way back when we increased our load there, they installed larger transformers on the pole, and they're supposed to come out and straighten the pole, PG&E, because it's leaning a little bit now. But that's where the power surge came from, when we struck the line. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, any other questions? Wasn't covered. Okay. We're open for discussion or any motions to move forward.
I like that we have a company in our community that has a reputation wider spread than our community. And it's pertinent to what happens in this community, this valley. I like the fact that they do put up their Christmas lights. We have the decorations at the gateway to the community. The trees are a nice appearance, hiding the compound. And I was all set to say I was fine with the deferral of the 60-foot widening of Jones and the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. It says here, the city engineer needs to determine that there is no further reason to defer construction of the improvements because their construction is necessary for the public health, welfare, and safety. And I hear that. I hear that there's flooding at that corner. I hear that there are traffic issues. I hear that there are accident potentials. Well, maybe they're everywhere. And that people do park on that street instead of driving into the lot. So that makes me want to keep that mitigation going, whereas originally I thought it's outside. It's not like houses are going to be built across the street, any more houses than are already there. Most of the time you see, like say, if we get a housing development on Brennan, they're going to put curb, gutter, and sidewalk. If we get other residential developments, then curb, gutter, and sidewalk makes sense. And I was all set to say, no, we don't need to do it here. But it sounds like we do need to do this. So I want to keep that active. And I like the idea of a horse barn and an arena, and it helps the quality of life for the employees and the family members, and those are my thoughts.
I have concerns that we have a heavy manufacturing site that we have now a residence on it, which is okay, and they're proposing to expand that residential use, also including horse activity, which I believe within the city limits of Escalon, I don't think horses are allowed. Or am I mistaken? With the deferred maintenance of the road widening and stuff, that Barbara, that was under an agreement in 2011, so it's in place.
Well, originally, it was deferred until 2036.
Yeah.
And I was all set to say, that's fine, but I don't want it deferred, because I think we need it.
Well, I mean.
I think the city engineer can determine that it's needed, curb gutter and sidewalk, because of the situation there on the street.
I was looking at making a condition that access, ingress and egress to the industrial operation that off of Jones stays open, and that's the primary road that activity should come out of, as opposed to, the residential side of it. And then maybe that will eliminate some of the congestions on on Jones. I don't know. The quicker we can get that corner developed, the better, and it might get some synergy for other industrial uses going down Jones. Ullery, and I know they're commercial developments or industrial, but both of those on Ullery, they have put in curbs, gutters, sidewalks, fire hydrants. Those are developed. And in between, I think it was a walnut orchard that hasn't been developed yet. I'm okay with all the conditions as stated right now, with installing the water, the fire hydrant, keeping the deferred curbs, gutters, sidewalks right away until 2036. So this will be the third time we've kicked the can down the road. What I'm hoping for is the barn is larger than for two horses. It's a really large arena. Once we agree to this, then it's there, and who knows what the next property owner will do with that site. Next.
Can we make it, just more of a question, can we make is it up to the city engineer to determine, based on this agreement 2036, is it up to the engineer to say when those improvements need to go in, or can the commission make a condition to have those installed?
I think if I were to advise on this issue, if the commission felt that way, we'd probably have to continue the item, seek an opinion of the city engineer. This is not a normal condition, right? This lives within an executed agreement. City staff, provided the application, works with the city engineer to review this. The city engineer in their review did not deem that the roadway improvements were needed at this time. So I think that's the way I would do it. If that's what the commission felt, we'd probably have to continue it, seek the city engineer's interpretation, and bring it back.
I think with, sorry, I was going to go. I think that if we ask for that site plan showing the routing and the flow of traffic and appropriate signage, I think a lot of the issues can be alleviated. No parking signs on the street and different things like that, where it sounds like he doesn't exactly want them to block traffic. So I don't know that that would be an issue if the appropriate signs were there that could be enforced.
And just one comment based on a comment made by Commissioner. This represents the city limit line, what is in color versus the white. So the far south properties touching adjacent to McHenry are the applicant's properties. It appears to us that there's maybe one property to the west that is included in the city limits. So when we talk about expansion of, potential development to the west of McHenry along Jones, there would be annexations, there would be larger conversations associated with any development, and that would not be immediate. So just
Is that another,
frame of reference for that comment.
is this the zoning or general plan?
This is zoning.
What does the general plan look like?
We can pull it up.
Different?
We're ready for you, almost.
Already asked all these questions.
General plan does go further in terms of, goes 3 or 4 properties further to the west.
My concern has to do with the water, and I understand the frustration with a railroad that keeps or holds on to its right-of-way despite the fact that it hasn't used those tracks in 20 years. I get it. That's not good, but we've, with what you're talking about putting in there and the fact that it is the city, I think we need to have a fire hydrant there. So seeing that in the plan, knowing that there would be a fire hydrant installed, that was something I was very much in favor of. Knowing that it's going to cost you, I think you said, I thought I heard 300,000, but maybe 100,000, whatever it is, to comply, it seems to me there ought to be another solution somewhere, somehow. Perhaps talking to the county, going 20 feet beyond the city limits and then doubling back, whatever. There might be something along those lines. That's not really for this vote. But I do think we need to, especially when we hear about poles being bumped into, when we hear about transformers on poles that probably need to be shored up, that weren't made for those, the number of transformers on those poles. I believe we need to have some order of fire protection out there. A fire hydrant would make me feel much more comfortable. So even though I share the outrage with the railroad's stance, I think that is an important consideration that the city has put into these conditions, and I think it should remain.
Is there discussion, comments, motions, additions? Just a clarification with Commissioner Dunbar's comment on the fire hydrant. Fire department's going to review it, and they're going to deem what's appropriate for the location for it to be safe. Correct? Okay. Whatever that may be. And the applicant will need to comply with that. Well, I'll make a motion. So do I need to read each of these, A, B, C, and D, or just reference them? Read them? Okay. Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the project by making the findings as required per section 17.56.030, findings for use permit, and per section 17.54.040, findings for site architecture, finding the project CEQA Class 3 categorically exemption 15303 for new construction of small structures, and CEQA Class 3 categorically exemption under section 15303 accessory structures, and authorize staff to file a notice of exemption, and to approve the conditional use permit amendment with the conditions of approval as stated below, with no modifications, and approve the site architecture application as presented with no modifications.
Knowing that the city engineer can accelerate the mitigation and call for a curb gutter and sidewalk, I'll second that motion.
A motion and a second.
I want to make sure we all know what we're approving. So on the water issue, there's kind of two things that were discussed. A sort of full connection to city water for the entirety of the property, or as the applicant raised, procuring a hydrant in a different manner that isn't a full connection. So I think that should be delineated. And then the second there, in terms of the widening of Jones, I think we would have to determine when that city engineer determination were to happen. If the second is in reference to any time earlier than 2036, I think that then is clear in the motion. If the reference is to sometime as part of this construction prior to pulling a building permit, then I think that should be made more clear in the motion.
One thing I want to be clear, under conditions of approval, Exhibit D, it kind of outlines what is required for the water. It's already been addressed there. So if we approve it as presented by staff, do we need to, if that's what you're going for, would that be sufficient?
I think we should state it because there was some ambiguity in terms of how there was ambiguity in the interpretation of the condition. And so just to be clear, so that staff, commission, public, and the applicant are aware, I think we should specify what is meant in terms of ensuring that there's a hydrant there.
Hydrant there, and all structures are connected to city water?
I think the motioner should specify.
I just want to be clear on what, okay.
Yeah. But I thought that was a determination of the city engineer.
No, the city engineer is the other thing.
Well, city engineer is both. The city engineer, alongside city staff, working with fire, determined that a hydrant was needed. There are multiple ways to provide a hydrant. There is full connection to the property, full city water connection to the property, which would mean abandonment of the well, the residence, any building that was then plumbed would be connected to city water. We've talked about that, the cost of bore and jack and all that, bore. Or if there's different ways, some sort of pump or something else that would service a hydrant that wouldn't need a full connection for every building on the parcel. Or parcels. So there's two different and pretty distinct views of that condition, and I think that should be specified.
I mean, I don't think I'm in a position to make that type of safety or engineering decision.
Well, so I'll say one thing. The staff, as stated, is comfortable. The reason that condition was put on there was to ensure that there was adequate fire safety protection per fire's condition. That was, our intent. So I'll say it that way. And that is consistent with the city engineer.
You just said the condition, but there are two versions of the condition. So I'm left wondering, I'm very concerned with fire safety. We've got how many fires burning right now in places we don't normally have fires burning in the valley. So I'm very concerned that if we do have a fire here, we have adequate means of confronting it. So do we go with a pump with assurances that that pump will not be out of operation if there's a fire on the premises? Or do we go with full connection? There are two options. And it looks, and I was thinking that we had a single option in front of us per staff recommendations, that we would be connecting to the water line with a hydrant. And the only real problem was how do we get the water line to the premises? So that was what my understanding of the reading was, not that there was another alternative that maybe dedicating a pump. Now, if the fire engineer thinks that's an appropriate solution, it may very well be. It may be better than connecting to the city. But I'd like to have more input on that. And I'm not sure how to get it at this point without delaying this.
Can I say something?
Yes. Doesn't the way the condition is written basically allows those alternate solutions to be ferreted out with staff and city engineer and fire marshal, which would be typically what would happen.
I would say that my concern is the requirement to tie into the city more as I think it would be appropriate as an option, but there are, through submitting and the design development, fire sprinkler, fire line, fire loop, whatever they come up with to meet the need of the property that then gets approved. There are options, a pump, a holding tank of water that has a certain quantity of supply. There are other options, but to pinhole them into tying into the city is not necessarily, it just ties them into all those costs without giving them the opportunity to explore alternates.
Where does that leave us?
It's really, there's maybe not consistency here on the interpretation of this. I think it's incumbent on the motioner to share with everyone else what they are thinking. This is a condition, so we do have, how do you say, we can amend this condition one way or the other because it's already been viewed by the city engineer. It can go either way, so if you as the motioner prefer a full connection or, what is adequate for fire safety, two different motions, I think you have that ability to do that. And then it would, go up to a vote and the rest of the commission could determine how they view that motion.
So and I guess this looking at it, we're looking at items 13 and 14 on page 57. The water system shall be designed and constructed in conformance with the city standards and the city's water system master plan and approved alterations. So to me, that's pretty clear that we're not saying what exactly needs to be done, but it needs to conform. Number 14, the approved water system, including fire hydrants capable of supplying the required fire flow for fire protection, shall be provided prior to building construction. Approval shall be by the city and Escalon Fire. So what that exactly looks like, I'm saying I'm not putting that stipulation on my motion. I'm saying that is part of the design process with the city engineer.
I think it's clear there's two paths. Staff's original condition was written, as I said, when I first raised this issue, we erred towards full connection. With the applicant bringing up in our discussions that we had with fire and the city engineer, every staff side is comfortable with a condition that satisfies fire's point there, that they want a hydrant. So I really do think it's incumbent, it's the purview of the motioner to make their determination, to decide. You're not specifying technically what has to happen. You're saying there's option A, which is full connection, or option B, which is the sort of fire hydrant option.
Okay, so I would then add to my motion that, and hopefully this is, I'm saying this right, that a fire hydrant is required and it needs to be, however it's put together, it's approved by the fire department. So I would leave that up to the city water connection. I also add that to motion that is also a discussion with the city engineer. That how water is connected to the site. I mean, is that appropriate? Is that going to clear enough?
I think we should just be clear. Is it full connection, abandonment of well to water, or the fire option, the fire hydrant option?
Fire hydrant option.
Okay. That's the motion. I'm not,
Yes.
we're
Yes,
just making clear what the motion is.
Yes.
Okay. So I think based on the record, that is a clear motion, and to me, at least.
Is it clear to everybody up here?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Because, I mean, I'm looking at the items also on page 57, subsequent to what you were citing. And they appear to be written as if there is going to be a full connection. The water system shall be installed, tested, and proven operational. The site shall have a separate meter for landscaping and domestic use. You don't need a meter if you've got a well, maybe under Sigma you do, but I think that's mainly for irrigation. You've got a backflow preventer with a blanket cage required for all connections to the city system. So these things appear to be, to me, this would only be necessary if you were connecting to the city. So as part of a motion, if we're approving this entire thing, then it is still confusing to me. And again, I think this, as Barbara was saying, I mean, I think this is probably this is an okay thing for the city of Escalon. I'm worried a little about the smell, but I think 2 horses is not a big deal. But the fire thing is truly a concern. And it can be done both ways, clearly, or either way. It can be done one of 2 ways. But I think we need to be specific on how we want it to be done. And if we can't be specific yet, I'd kind of like to know a little more about why we can't.
Okay, so let's try this. You're right, and we've mentioned it a couple times. The original condition was sort of full connection. So if the motioner wanted to amend the condition, which would be consistent with staff's position raised during this meeting, that full connection wasn't necessarily required, but provisions of the fire hydrant were supplied satisfactory to the fire department, then I think the motion should read all the things that, is on the recommendation, amending amending the water section to say what I just said, amending that condition to not require full connection, but provision satisfactory to the fire department. I think that would be a clean way. I'm not saying that would be approved, but that would be a clean way to share with everyone what the motion is. It can then be seconded or not, and then voted on if seconded.
That brings up another question, though. If we are going to go with a system that is entirely contained on the property, which is fine, I'm assuming, but that means the hydrant will be on the property and not on city property. Correct?
It's in an easement, correct?
Well, we have an easement, but the railroad's there, so
The railroad's on the other side.
it's
There are often,
railroad's on the same side, it's on the west side.
or it could be on Jones. There are
On Jones.
oftentimes when fire hydrants are put in before the full development of a roadway. That's not uncommon.
Okay, so where would the fire, if it's not connected to the city, where would the fire hydrant go? Should we specify that? Because the city should have access to that.
The engineer should be able to specify that fire.
So if that was the motion, it would then fall to the fire department to determine where and how that hydrant operates to their satisfaction to put out any fire that may happen on site. Again, we are just speaking about what the motion would be for clarity. I'm not trying to advocate for one position or the other. We're just trying to get clarity on a condition.
Let me just throw out a question. If we go with not the fire hydrant, not the full connection, does that mean that the domestic well stays operational?
As long as it meets the capacity, they have to go through a design process to determine that. If it doesn't, then there's a lot of engineering that has to happen, one way or the other.
And just some background on that. So the applicant connected to sewer, not based on any development that occurred, but because there was issues with their septic system. And ultimately, the city required that they connected to sewer. So the same could apply here. If the well was no longer satisfactory for the operation of the development or parcels, the city could require them, per the agreement, to go on to city water.
Any point in the future.
Well, and during the plan review process probably as well, right?
Or any point, yes, both, but any point in the future. 1 year, 1 month, 10 years, before the 2036.
Okay, well, I'll try this again. So to amend my motion, and hopefully this is clear.
Instead of amending, why don't...
Start fresh?
Yeah, let's start fresh.
Okay.
And can you... Well, that's fine. We'll try to do it in one take.
Okay. Okay, so I'll start fresh. So a new motion to make findings required as per section 17.56030, findings for use permit per section 1754.040, findings for site and architecture. Find the project CEQA Class 3 categorically exempt per section 15303, new construction of small structures, and a CEQA Class 3 categorically exemption under section 15303, accessory structures, and authorize staff to file a notice of exemption. Approve the conditional use permit amendment with the conditions of approval as follows. And then approve the site and architecture application as presented. And then for the, I should have started with this, I suppose. For the fire hydrant system that will be approved by the fire department, and the water connection does not need to be connected to the city at time of construction.
Can you just clarify which number you're talking about under the conditions?
So this was number 13 and 14. And then with that comment, not having to connect to the city water, that really nullifies number 16 and 17, which is the meter and the backflow preventer, since we wouldn't be connecting.
Just to clarify, your motion is a strike 16 and 17.
Yes, strike 16 and 17.
A second.
Okay, all that, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay. Thank you. Okay, administrative matters we'll move on to.
I can take it. Number 3 and 4. Well, another year has come and passed. We are going to select a new commission chair and vice chair starting in July, fiscal year 24-25. So thank you very much, Commission Chair Mark Sarkozy, for your leadership this past year. Thank you, Vice Chair Castellanos. You've stepped in a few times over the last year, so we appreciate that. And so for items number 3 and 4, you'll make a nomination and then vote to select a chair and then a vice chair.
Well, I'll make a motion to nominate Vice Chair Castellanos for chair for fiscal year 24-25.
A second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Abstain.
Vote for yourself.
No.
Okay, so motion passes 4-0-1. And then we've got nominate and select commission vice chair.
So we got the two bookends here.
I nominate Mike as vice chair for fiscal year 24-25.
I second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Against? And abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, motion passes 4-0-1.
Mike, I'm gonna be gone for like 6 months.
Gosh, I was too. Where are we going? Golfing.
Okay. Let's see, matters presented from the audience. No one here, but is anybody still online? Quick exit.
No.
Okay. And then on to staff communications.
Couple things. We do expect to have the housing element for your consideration at the next meeting, at the July meeting. So hopefully you all can attend. We are heading towards adoption of that document. Planning Commission is the first step. So that'll be in July. Most everyone knows now we have received an application for the Murphy Ranch residential subdivision. It is a proposed 73-unit, single-family subdivision north of what we call the Farinelli subdivision at the, what would that be, southeast corner of Brennan and 120. We are working our way through the review of that application. That application does include an annexation and a specific plan, so it is a longer review period, longer review and approval period. We expect that review and processing of the entitlements, the planning approvals, to play out over the next 6 to 8 months.
12.
Yeah. So, I want the commission certainly to know. I want the public who's listening to know. This is, it's not happening tomorrow. We have had several calls for public workshops or something like that to kind of go over the application. We are working with the developers. We must remember it really is their project. It's within our city, but it really is their project. This is a private development funded with private money. We are working with them on the timing of such a meeting. So just FYI on that. That'll be coming forward at some point, assuming they continue to move forward with that. But that would require an annexation. And annexation basically means a change in the city boundary. So everyone thinks of that property as within the city limits. It is not technically within the city limits. It is, the city limit line is jogged around that vacant, well, largely vacant property. I think that is all, although I'm sure Diana will share something that I forgot.
You did a good job. I don't have anything to add.
Okay. Commissioner Communications. Down this end?
Nothing for me.
Oh, just great job from the chair. It's gonna be hard to follow.
Willis?
Tell me again what's going on Santa Fe, just south of Vine. All those things. What's that guy doing, or whoever to that property? What are they doing?
A person purchased the property, and they are in the process of building a fence.
The fence is in, but what about where
A gate,
the gate?
some pillars, and a gate.
Little ones and a big ones, big ones? Okay. And I just, Bing Crosby used to bring his dog over here to the kennel, and now we're gonna wipe that out with houses.
It's a story.
Nobody
It has
knows,
not been approved yet.
nobody knows who Bing Crosby is, but.
Christmas.
I know who Bing Crosby is.
Didn't they have a golf tournament in Carmel?
Some little thing.
That's all, that's all.
I have no communication other than to say, for someone who is so constantly confused, I am humbled by the nomination as vice chair, because I really do feel constantly confused.
Get a new printer.
Well, I would just add, certainly thank all of you for being part of this year. Sorry for tonight's kind of fumble. This was a difficult motion to put together, so sorry for that confusion. And I noticed they've started some dirt work over the development across 120 coming into town, so that's nice to see. That moved pretty quick, although half the stuff was already on the site, as we learned. That was easy. Yeah, I guess that's all. So thank you for the opportunity to be up here.
Thank you, fearless leader.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you two up for nominee? Or somebody's, two chairs are coming up.
No, they just got
We just got
Oh, they got
Just got
reappointed?
reassigned.
Oh, okay.
So the city council at Monday's meeting did renew the terms for both Sarkozy and Dunbar. We received 2 applications, both by the incumbents. So they have terms out till 2028. The remaining 3 commissioners do have terms expiring next year, June 2025.
So there were the only 2 applicants?
They were the only 2 applicants.
Really?
Yep.
We make those meetings about the development on Tuesdays at 6:30, second Tuesday, so that we get some participation in our meeting instead of having to come to a separate meeting.
When it comes before us, there's going to be standing room only.
I know, that's why I'm wondering if we can have like it as a topic versus,
We've been pretty blessed these last 10 or 12 years. It's been pretty quiet.
Nothing too major.
Yeah, no.
All right, well, with that, 8:04,
All right.
we will end it.
Thank you.
So